On today's show, Jayden Daniels suffered and played through a major injury last season. Only one rookie is expected to earn a starting job, and the Commanders finally released their first unofficial depth chart of the 2025 season. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Full Command Show. My name is Grant Mitchell, and we are here to talk about everything involving the Washington Commanders. Now, as I record this video, 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning, the boys are traveling up to New England. It's a travel day before the joint practice on Wednesday and, of course, the preseason game on Friday. As I have mentioned a couple of times now, I'm going to be putting out a game preview either on Thursday or Friday morning before the preseason game, and then I'm going to be immediately reacting to the preseason game as soon as it finishes. I've got a whole new design. We're going to incorporate probably a new series on this channel with some fun elements. Really hope you guys do check that out. It'll be out late on Friday after the game. If you're out having a good time, if you're asleep, whatever the case may be, check back on Saturday, check back in Sunday. I'm going to give you my thoughts from the game, standout players, and a whole bunch more. Also, something that I teased earlier this week. On Thursday, I'm going to be recording with a very prominent and intelligent member of the Eagles community. Excuse me. And I know that might worry some of you because you didn't come here for Eagles content, but I feel in some ways that's actually going to be, he's going to provide an even better perspective on the Commanders' outlook, because we all, for the most part, share the same perspective as Commanders fans, but him being an Eagles fan and a defending Super Bowl champion, he'll probably have some thoughts that we might not be able to see ourselves. So be on the lookout for that as well. Guys, before we jump into the video today, if you have not hit that subscribe button, I strongly encourage you to join this community. We are growing super fast. Everybody who has already hit that subscribe button, I love the comments that you guys leave. I love that you're just a part of this journey. We're on the climb to hit 1,000 subscribers before the preseason game on Friday, so please help me out in getting to that milestone. Also, hit the like button if you want to support me, if you want to support the Commanders, if you like the content, whatever the case may be. And as always, leave your comments on everything that I say in this video as we go through, whether it's my opinion, whether it's a fact, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree, whatever the case may be. This channel is all about building conversations between me and between you guys, members of the community. And yeah, let's go ahead and let's jump into the video. So Jayden Daniels confirmed that he did play with a broken rib last year. Remember that run against the Carolina Panthers where it looked like he was going to go for 200, 300 rushing yards in that game? Starts off with like a 50, 60-yard run up the right side, gets tackled short of the goal line. I can't remember. I don't think they ended up scoring on that drive, even though he ran it down to like the 10-yard line, and he clearly was uncomfortable, and then he threw his helmet as he came off, and he never returned. And then I think the next week was next week the game up in Philadelphia. I'm forgetting the order of operations here, but he did play with a broken rib, and he threw the Hail Mary against the Chicago Bears. He threw that with a broken rib. He was watching it back at a Madden event party with Saquon Barkley and Justin Jefferson, and Jefferson said, like, that's literally a football dream. That's everybody wants to have that moment in their career. Saquon was like 60 yards in the air. That's crazy. And Jayden said, with a broken rib. And actually, as I'm saying all this, the thought just has popped into my head. Did they play the Panthers game at that point? Let's see. Okay, so October 20th was the Panthers game. Jayden only throws 2 passes in that game. Then very next week is that Bears game. So he does have the broken rib there. Then it's the Giants game. Then it's the Steelers, and it's the Eagles, and it's the Cowboys. That's the 3-game losing streak. I remember him looking more uncomfortable in those Steelers and Eagles games, but they were actually about month and a half after he suffered that broken rib. So I don't know. Point being, he played with a broken rib, and for football players, it's supposed to be tough. Your quarterback, if he's the leader of your team, he's supposed to be tough. He's supposed to have a strong mental resolve. And Jayden obviously has all of that. But one thing you can't say about Jayden last year is that he was a lean muscle machine. Like, he was just skin and bones. So for him to take that rib injury, I'll give you an example. I ran track, so I'm used to my legs hurting. I tore my hamstring a couple of years ago, and I want to say that I handled it pretty well because I was so used to it. A boxer or a wrestler, let's say, gets like their arm broken. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, but I'm sure they can kind of shrug it off. Like, I've dealt with something like this before. I'm used to it. For Jayden to be that skinny and for him to break his rib, which when you think about the torque that goes into throwing a football and also him running and taking hits, like you remember that hit he took in the Buccaneers game where he got popped on the sideline out of bounds in the playoff game? For him to be able to play the rest of the season, especially play at the level he did with a broken rib, is kind of crazy. It also should come as no surprise that he came back a little bit beefed up. I know he's downplaying it, saying it wasn't really his focus, and it kind of happened naturally. And I believe that he didn't go into the offseason with his number one priority being to gain weight, but he probably understands that he's not going to survive in the NFL if he doesn't get, just not even stronger, just have a little more cushion on his body. Because that play against the Panthers, it was an awkward fall, but you can get crunched in the NFL. It was almost a non-contact sort of injury. He was just kind of somersaulting, and I think in that motion is when it happened. But point being, the kid's tough as nails, as if we didn't know that. And we should take this as a sign that, yeah, everybody worried about a sophomore slump. How about Jayden Daniels without a broken rib? Let's see what that looks like. One quick thing here before we jump into the depth chart release. We got a quote from Trey Amos, who was the subject of one of my videos yesterday. He is also, I'll spoil the depth chart release just a little bit. Trey Amos is the only rookie who's penciled in as a starter. So I just wanted to put a quote out there. He was talking about MARSHON LATTIMORE. He said, well, Shon, he gave me a lot of great pointers. I talked to him, just learning every aspect of the game. I appreciate being in the same room with him and those guys, each and every one of them, because I feel like we are building a great bond as a whole. We just got to keep on building that chemistry, and I feel like we're going to have a great DB room. Everybody's wanting to compete for one another during training camp. Yeah, I'm really excited to see the DBs. That video that I mentioned that's coming out with the Eagles guy, well, we were swapping some text earlier this week. One of the questions that I want us to go over in that video is what position group does he feel the Commanders most improved upon? And we spent a lot of time talking with one another about the DBs. And when you compare the DB room last year, and I want to pull it up, who was on their first 53-man roster last year? Please don't give me the 2025 one. They gave me the 2025 one. How do I get to the 2024 depth chart Commanders? Here we go. First unofficial depth chart. So if you scroll down and you look at the cornerbacks last year, Mike Sainristil still is the constant. You had Benjamin St-Juste, Michael Davis, Emmanuel Forbes Jr., Tariq Castro-Fields, Noah Igbenogany. You compare that to this year, where you've got MARSHON LATTIMORE, Trey Amos, Mike Sainristil, Jonathan Jones, and Noah Igbenogany. It's night and day, the improvement that has been made. Now, there are things that need to go right. For example, Mikey needs to be able to transition back into nickel, which I'm assuming he can, since Nick Saban called him the best player at pound for pound in the entire NFL draft when he was playing nickel. But I assume he can make that transition. Trey Amos is a rookie, but he's been excellent at camp. Joe Witt Jr. confirmed that yesterday, said Trey has had a good day every day. And MARSHON LATTIMORE basically wasn't practicing last year, and he was injured. So MARSHON LATTIMORE is one of the best corners in the league when he's healthy. Granted, he has been on a little bit of a decline, but even still, that doesn't mean he can't be a good player. So this quarterback room, there's legitimate top 10 upside in the league. They have to hit that potential, but it is definitely on the board. So again, that video is coming out later this week. We'll talk more about that in depth. But let's jump on over. Let's talk about the official or the unofficial depth chart release, the first one of the Commander season. I have some thoughts on this depth chart. On one hand, I felt like it was an opportunity for Dan Quinn and Adam Peters to feed the excitement of the fan base because there are so many moving parts, exciting young players and rookies. They didn't do any of that. It was just an exercise in PR and expectation management. Essentially, aside from the starters, everybody else, so second, third, fourth, fifth stringers, were ordered by their years of experience in the NFL. And on the one hand, like, I was disappointed as a fan, just emotionally. I wanted to gain real insight as to who's winning the competitions to make the roster, who's winning the competitions to be the second string backups and actually get on the field when the starters come off. But I also have to keep in mind, look, it's early in the preseason. They don't want to set expectations for anybody. They don't want to send indications to other teams around the league who they're favoring and who they're not. Because when they have inevitably cut some of these players ahead of the first real 53-man roster, they're going to want to keep a lot of those guys on their practice squad. So if they're already showing their cards to other teams around the league saying, hey, we're ready to get rid of this guy, those teams are probably like, okay, well, we really like him and we want him on the practice squad, or we even want him on our team. So as soon as you cut him, we're going to be ready there. They're ready to sign him. So they're going to write that guy's name down, say like the Commanders, they've already got him 5th string, be ready to offer him a contract when the time comes. So I understand them not doing that. And also, when I think about the theme of competition that they have constantly preached, a lot of that involves keeping the young guys further behind and not depriving them of opportunities, but letting them know you're not going to walk in and take a job you haven't earned. I mean, even Jayden Daniels wasn't announced as the quarterback until halfway, 3/4 of the way through the preseason last year. Marcus Mariota got the reps on day one. We've seen it. Andrew Wiley was with the ones on day one of training camp, while Josh Connolly was with the 2s. He had to wait for his opportunity, and they had to swap. So it's very bland, very vanilla, but I get it. Some of the standouts, like, for example, Croskey-Merritt is 5th on the depth chart among running backs. Number 1, they have Brian Robinson Jr., then it's Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and then Croskey-Merritt. Punt returner, they have KJ Osborne at number 1, Jalen Lane at number 2. That's despite Adam Peters telling Lane, you're the best punt returner in the draft when they picked him in the 4th round. And KJ Osborne, if we look at the wide receiver depth chart, for example, there are 3 different, what's the word? Rows, I guess is just the simplest way to put it. There are 3 different rows of receivers. One of them is Terry McLaurin, Michael Gallup, Chris Moore, Michael Strachan. Then you've also got Noah Brown, KJ Osborne, Jacoby Jones, and some other guys. Then you've got Deebo Samuel, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, Corey Brooks. And I'm looking at this like, okay, so Jalen Lane is wide receiver 3 in one of these. Ja'Cory Brooks is wide receiver number 4. KJ Osborne is wide receiver number 2, but I think he's probably less likely to make the roster than Lane and Brooks. At the very least, Lane is making the roster 100%. Osborne is not. Not 100%. I don't think he's making it all. You can argue Ja'Cory Brooks has a better chance to make the roster than Osborne does, yet Brooks is listed 4th, and Osborne is listed 2nd. So I'm looking at him being number 1 on the punt return list, and again, it just confirms what I'm saying of they are essentially telling the young guys, you have to work for it, and to the vets, even if it is just a form of lip service, we're going to give you the respect that you deserve because you've been in the league for however long. Now, does that really hold up? Is that a meritocracy? No, it's not. But it is, like I said, it's an exercise in expectation management, not just for fans, but players as well. And it's also preventing any early internal unrest from the vets. Because if KJ Osborne, let's just say he has an attitude, and he doesn't. I want to make that clear. I'm not saying he does not actually, but hypothetically, if he had a bad attitude and he saw that Jalen Lane was ahead of him in the punt return list, and he was also wide receiver number 2, whereas Osborne was wide receiver number 3. He's like, this kid just got here 2 months ago. I've been in the league for 5-6 years. Like, what has he done to prove it? Yada, yada, yada. You get the point I'm making. So, disappointing for fans, but also definitely understandable from a coach/GM perspective. Let's talk about the rookies here. Let's find where they are on the depth chart. As I mentioned, Trey Amos is the only rookie who's penciled in as a starter. They've got 3 tiers of cornerbacks for the outside guys and then the nickel. Those starters are expected to be MARSHON, LATTIMORE, Trey Amos, Mike Sainer still. No surprises there. Some of the other rookies. Josh Connolly Jr. was listed as a 2nd string right tackle. Andrew Wiley was listed as the 1st string. However, in Connolly's 2nd tier, his name was preceded by an or. So it says 1st, Andrew Wiley, 2nd, and then it says or Josh Connolly. So again, they're making the rookies work for it, not showing their cards, not going to let anyone know who's starting, probably because Wiley or Connolly hasn't earned the starting job yet. They're going to play it out. Remember last year, Brandon Coleman and Cornelius Lucas rotated at left tackle. One of them would play a series, and then the other would play the next series. And maybe that's possible. Dan Quinn was asked about it. He'd refused to rule it out as a possibility. I don't think it's what teams want to do necessarily, but at the same time, it can be a good way to help your rookies get their feet wet. With that being said, if Brandon Coleman's ankle injury is serious and he can't start at left guard, Andrew Wiley is the backup left guard, so he'll go there, and Connerly will be the starting right tackle. And your line would be Tunsil, Wiley, Biotish, Cosme or Allegretti, and then Connerly. That's what that would look like. Who are the other rookies? Jalen Lane, I mentioned, is third for receivers. Amos is starting. Croskey-Merritt is fifth for running backs. Again, not reading too much into that. Oh, and then Kane Medrano. So we've got two different sections of linebackers. The starters, no surprise, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. The second stringers are Jordan McGee, which I get, and then Nick Bellore, which outstanding special teams player. Is he going to get on the field as a linebacker? No, he's not. Dominique Hampton is a third string, and Kane Medrano is the other third string. I think they're both more likely to play actual defensive snaps than Nick Bellore. So again, it's tough to get a real read on where the coaching staff is at with their thoughts on who they might be cutting and keeping, but Medrano, Hampton, third for LBs. What else we got here? Sam Hartman listed at fourth for quarterbacks. Also no surprise. Another young guy. And the third stringer is Josh Johnson, who's 39 years old. They're going to show him his respects that he's been in the league for this long, yada, yada, yada. Jayden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, no doubt quarterback 1, no doubt quarterback 2. The question with Hartman really is he's got a much clearer long-term career in the NFL. Josh Johnson being 39 years old and having played for 70% of teams, it feels like. Might be done after this year, who knows, but there's not a long-term future, and he's not going to develop into a starter. He's just a nice guy to have on standby if you need him as an emergency. The question that they're probably asking themselves, the Commanders, is Sam Hartman good enough to the point that he'll get signed to be another team's third-string quarterback? Do we need to promote him, or does he earn the promotion to third string? Or can we keep him on practice squad, give him a year, and then next year potentially help him compete for quarterback number 2? Because Marcus Mariota is making $8 million, which is, I would assume, one of the top paid backup quarterbacks in the league. And as influential as I think Mariota was to helping Jayden Daniels develop, after those first 2 years, do you need a top flight backup like that? Especially with Sam Hartman and Jayden Daniels having the relationship they have. They're like basically best friends. Can you get Sam to be quarterback 2? Well, that depends on how he plays in the preseason. Cliff Kingsbury said yesterday Sam's been very up and very down. Might started a little wobbly because he had some off-season surgery, but we'll see how he plays in the preseason, and that will go a long way to determining what happens between him and Josh Johnson. The one group where there was a bit of an indication for me was the defensive line / outside linebackers, which is really just your edge rushers. For example, Von Miller and Jacob Martin are not lined up. They're penciled in there. So let's talk specifically about the defensive ends. The defensive tackles, I'll just read them to you. Deron Payne and Javon Kinlaw, the starters. Johnny Newton and Eddie Goldman, the backups. No surprise there. Sheldon Day and Carl Davis are the third stringers, and Ricky Barber fourth. I did think it was interesting that Eddie Goldman was ahead of Sheldon Day, because Sheldon Day, even though he got elevated off the practice squad last year, he actually played better than a lot of people who were on that defensive line. Like, the defensive line was bad, don't get me wrong, but at moments, it seemed like he was playing the best of them. I didn't feel like that was a long-term solution. He's also undersized at 6'1", 285. Eddie Goldman is 6'2", 320. And obviously he was a free agent signing as well. But that did give you a little bit of an indication they're favoring Goldman to Sheldon Day. That means Day could be another practice squad guy. Defensive ends / outside linebackers, everybody rushing the edge. You got Dietrich Wise, Dorrance Armstrong, and Von Miller as your starters. Cleveland Farrell, Jalen Holmes, and Jacob Martin as your backups. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is listed as a third stringer. Andre Jones Jr. and TJ Maguranyanga. I'm so sorry, TJ. Those are your third stringers. Narell Pollard, a fourth stringer. What I'm looking at here is Jacob Martin is second for outside linebackers. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is third for edge rushers. I really don't feel like they're going to keep, I think 10 defensive linemen it should be the max. So if you get 4 tackles and 6 edge rushers, that's still a little bit imbalanced. Maybe, and if Sheldon Day's on your practice squad, you can elevate him on any given day. I almost wonder if it's actually just going to be 5 edges and 4 defensive tackles. That makes more sense to me. And the way that I had it in my roster preview, I had them keeping Dietrich Wise, Cleveland Farrell, Dorrance Armstrong, Von Miller, and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, which means that Jalen Holmes and Jacob Martin both got cut. Well, both those guys are listed second on the depth chart, while Javonte Jean-Baptiste is listed third. So again, is this the fact that Jean-Baptiste is a second-year player? Is it because he's younger and they don't want to upset the veterans? I don't know, but that's one area where, because they have Goldman ahead of Day, that shows me that they did actually give a bit of an indication there. And now I just want to know, does that hold up for Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Jalen Holmes, and Jacob Martin as well? But those are my biggest takeaways from the depth chart release. This is just the first batch, and it's unofficial. We are really going to see the depth chart play out in front of our eyes during the preseason game. So make sure that you do keep an eye on that. Make sure you do check out my pregame preview for that. Check out my game reaction as well. And as always, please hit the subscribe button so you can be a part of this community. We're growing very quickly. Your guys' support has been insane. I am so deeply appreciative of you all. Hit this like button if you did enjoy the video. Go to the comment section. Let me know what your thoughts are on everything I said. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have a great day.